So I'm Aaron Ezra. I'm the chairman and owner of Plan A.
And I'm Yusuf Abdurrahman. I'm a social media content producer for Plan A. Thanks for joining me for this call. I was wondering if we could just discuss more about what it's like to work at Plan A and just how you've kind of created a very welcoming culture for employees across the globe.
Yeah. This is one of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about to try to make sure that we get it right. For a professional services company like Plan A Technologies, where we are really distinguishing ourselves based on the quality of our people, everything we do is based on the quality of our people, that is everything. So we try really, really hard to make sure we're finding the best people and to make sure that once we get those people joining us, that they are happy, we're taking good care of them, we're making them feel welcome, we're making them feel challenged, we're giving them a really diverse range of cool and interesting experiences and making those folks feel heard and respected. And so that's a big part of what we do. We spend a lot of time crafting things like our mentorship program that gives everyone the opportunity to be paired with somebody who's a little bit more senior, who can kind of guide them in their careers, talk to them a little bit about interesting things happening in the industry. We spend a lot of time on things like big get-togethers and parties for the team members, especially since so many people work remotely. That's really, really important to a lot of the folks, that they get a chance to kind of meet each other and hang out with their colleagues. And then I think, most critically, we create an atmosphere that is almost academic, almost university-like, in that you have a whole lot of very smart people coming together, getting a chance to tackle really interesting problems that our clients all around the world are wrestling with. And then they're working on their piece, but they always have the ability to talk with their colleagues about how best to address a certain challenge and move from there.
Well, personally, from my experience, like it really speaks to the kind of employees you look for when you're hiring in terms of personality. When I joined Plan A, like everyone was very, very welcoming from the start. I've yet to meet someone who isn't. So I don't know. Are there like specific personality traits you're looking for when you're going to hire?
Yeah, that's a great question. Understanding that talented folks come in many different shapes and sizes and personalities, and we don't necessarily want everybody to be exactly the same way. We want, really different kinds of people who are all mixing together on the team. However, there are certain things that certainly make it easier. If we have an individual who is really driven to do well, if you don't have some of that self-drive, to kind of go the extra mile, then it hurts. Also making sure we have somebody who is flexible. One of the things that's kind of interesting is that you do find a certain number of, for instance, technical engineering folks who need things to be done in a very, very, very specific way. And that's okay. There's some really great people like that. But if you're too like that and you can't be flexible and understand the dynamics of a project or dealing with other human beings, that's not going to work. And by the way, going with that flexibility component is the idea of empathy, the idea of making sure that, you have somebody who is, I think, going to be kind and good. We don't want folks who are spiteful or are mean. Even one or two of those individuals in an organization can make so many different people feel terrible, and just brings down the mood of everything. We're trying to create a fun environment over here. So, one of the little informal tests that we often use is, I say to the interviewers, look, if you were excited to be trapped in a car with this person for the next 2 or 3 hours on a long car trip, that's a good sign. That means you want to hear more about them. You're having a great conversation. But if they're the kind of person where you have a 2 or 3 hour car trip ahead of you and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible, then maybe not the best person to bring onto the team.
If we could maybe dive more into the aspect of interviewing and the process of recruiting more on the technical side, of what you're looking for in terms of like skills and more of the process that Plan A takes when hiring?
We have a few different processes because different clients ask for sometimes dramatically different processes to be followed. So, for instance, we have some clients that just say, hey, follow the normal Plan A process. Totally cool.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then we interview the individual, we review the resume, we interview the people who we like first in an HR interview. Then if they do well in the HR interview, we give them a coding test. Sometimes those are flipped. That all goes well. Then the next piece is if we feel like they're a good personality fit, and it looks like at first blush they have some strong technical skills, then we'll do 1, 2, or sometimes even 3 technical interviews, depending on the person's seniority, background, areas of expertise, and then we can bring them on board. Now, sometimes what ends up happening is we interview an individual in our process, but then our client also has its own process that it needs to go through. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that, we try, if we can just do like 2 interviews, that's great. And we try whenever we can. But for different reasons, sometimes a candidate, let's say that there's a candidate who's a cloud architect and DevOps expert.
Yeah.
They might say, look, I just want to focus on my expertise in Azure initially, and then I want to focus on, all of the work that I've done, in other areas later. And they don't want to have one gigantic interview. They want to break it up. Or sometimes we don't have the right people to do all of the interviews at the same time. And so there's a whole lot of reasons why sometimes it can take a few rounds of interviews, which I know is annoying, and we try our best to minimize, but that does happen sometimes. But yeah, and then once we interview the person, we like the person, then we can bring them on board, we can welcome them, give them lots of guidance when they first come to the company, and welcome materials and all that good stuff.
My follow-up question to that was the best way I can prepare for my interview?
I think the advice that I would give to somebody who's thinking of applying not only to Plan A, but to really any interview is first go over the stories that you have from your own work experience. Think about like that really crazy difficult challenge that you had to tackle, or think about the pretty amazing contribution that you made. Think about the things that you struggled with in your career so far, and really have those stories to tell that illustrate who you are, that illustrate the kind of talent set that you have. It just helps to kind of go through your own background a little bit and think about, all right, well, I worked on that one, data integration project for like 2 years, and oh my God, that was hard. Is there a cool story from that I could tell that would show how hard that was, that would show the kind of work that I did that was representative of those 2 years? So I think that's always a really, really good approach to take. 2, I would say really just kind of brush up on the latest and greatest in your area of expertise. So if you're a .NET engineer, just kind of reread all the latest and greatest about what's going on in .NET so that you are up to speed on that. Or if you are a game artist, for instance, just make sure you're aware of some of the latest interesting things being talked about regarding, say, AI and game art, and so like just think about those different things so that you are up to speed on what's happening within your own industry and in your own area of expertise. Next, I would say from a preparation perspective, I always think that it's good to know a little bit about what's happening in the broader technology world. And so, not that is the most critical area for everybody, but if you're somebody who is working at a technology company like ours, you should know about what's happening in technology. And so just take a little bit of time to do that. And finally, I always think that it helps to make sure you have the basics covered. When you're doing an interview with somebody, make sure the lighting is good, make sure your microphone is on, make sure you're not in a super crowded place. I can't tell you how many folks we try to interview where, you know, they're in like an internet cafe, there's people going all over, the picture keeps freezing, the connection keeps dropping, we can't hear anything they're saying, and it's like, gosh, this is maybe the worst possible place you could pick for doing an interview. Or other people, I mean, we'll interview people sometimes who show up and they don't have a shirt on and or whatever, and you're like, what are you doing, man? Like at least like sort of dress professionally.
Yeah.
And so you got to like think about those things and just make sure not only are you preparing yourself kind of mentally, emotionally, intellectually for an interview, but that you are presenting in an upbeat, positive way that looks, again, at least somewhat professional.
Are there frequent questions that you hear a lot from maybe your recruiters or maybe from people who are trying to apply that you can just answer straight away right now?
Yeah, so well, we get very different questions from the candidates versus questions that come up from recruiters. But questions that the candidates will ask a lot, for instance, will be things like, you know, what is the vacation policy? You know, what is my salary going to potentially be? You know, what are the expectations within this job? Things like that. Often ask about our culture. They'll often ask about educational opportunities. Many of the team members are really worried about their opportunities for upward mobility and getting new and additional positions within the company. I think that is something that, you know, it's too bad in our industry because there are a lot of companies who will kind of hire somebody and then keep them in that position without giving them a chance to ever, you know, advance. And so we really, really work hard not to do that. We do a tremendous amount of promoting within our own ranks. And so that's something that's, you know, we talk about a lot. You know, I think the candidates in general, you know, want to make sure like, all right, I'm making a big decision in coming to a company like Plan A Technologies and leaving my old organization. Is it really legit? Is it really, are the people nice to each other? Are you just going to fire me after 3 months? Like, you know, they want to make sure that it is a real company, a comforting company, a supportive company, you know, and something that's going to look good on their resume and for their career. So we have fantastic answers for all of those. Fortunately, we really, as I mentioned earlier, work hard to make sure we're taking good care of people, giving them lots of opportunities. You know, one of the things that's really cool with a company like ours is because we work with so many different clients in so many different countries all over the world. If somebody's not happy with a project or, you know, one of the kind of tasks that they're doing, we often have many different things that we can put people on. So they're not, after they join us, pigeonholed into just doing one thing again and again.
I think we can end with the last question being, how do you see Plan A changing the future?
You know, we have some companies where we're just working on one small little project for them. And then we have other companies where they basically have us do everything. We are their entire IT technology development group. We do everything. And, you know, I see us getting more into a lot of the different companies that we're working with and helping them in a much broader range of technology related ways. So, you know, I just want to kind of continue with our success, give people the ability to continue working on challenging problems, and then helping more and more industries as we continue to expand.
Thank you for joining me for this call. It was very informative.
Thank you, Yeah. This was a lot of fun. And hopefully for the folks watching, this familiarizes you a little bit more with all of the fun adventures that you have to look forward to.
Amazing planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, Ezra.
No problem.